If you know anything about Supergiant, then I don't need to tell you what makes Hades a good game. I don't need to tell you that the voice acting is more stellar than any AAA game on the market, and I don't need to tell you that the soundtrack produces banger after banger, whether they be instrumental or lyrical. And I sure as hell don't need to tell you that the art style is so detailed and next level that you could easily spend half an hour just staring at a single screenshot. I don't need to tell you any of these things because they're what you come to expect when you boot up a game with this logo on it. Because this is Supergiant. It comes with the territory. So then this video is a wrap, right? We're done here. Pack it up. There's nothing to add to the discussion, right? Well, no, shut up. The video just started, okay? Let me do my thing. Because Hades stands apart from the rest of Supergiant's games in one big regard. It's not solely a top-down action game with a narrator that slowly reveals the story beats to you. And it's not a hybrid of a visual novel and a fantasy sports game. Hades isn't any of these things because Hades is a roguelike. And I might not need to tell you what makes Hades a good game. But I don't mind telling you what makes it a good roguelike. Roguelikes are a pretty cutthroat genre when you get right down to it. Everyone likes to talk about how saturated the market is with hero shooters or battle royales, but in terms of competitiveness, roguelikes are right up there with them. The only difference here is that roguelikes aren't multiplayer focused experiences that cannibalize each other to the point that only 2 or 3 can be successful at a time, while the rest are made by Cliff Bleszinski and taken out to the back of the shed Old Yeller style. Look, the point I'm trying to make here is, if you want to make a successful roguelike, it has to have something that can set itself apart from the rest. You know what I mean, you need your overabundance of wacky guns, or trading card gameplay, or a co-op focus, or fucking wizard battles. Okay, but if that's the case, then what does Hades have that the giants of the genre don't? You see what I did? Because they're called Supergiant, and I said the giants of the genre. I see it's in their name. Well, you remember in the beginning when I listed all those aspects that come with every Supergiant game? I kind of intentionally left one out. Like I said, if you've ever played or even just heard of a Supergiant game, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about narrative.
Boom! Big reveal!
Which really shouldn't sound all that crazy. Like, ooh, wow, they put narrative in a video game. I haven't seen that before. But that's the thing. I'm not here to tell you what makes Hades a good game. I'm here to tell you what makes it a good roguelike. And there's kind of this little unspoken rule of the genre. You can't put a narrative in a roguelike. I mean, not counting Hades, I could count the number of roguelikes that focused on narrative on one finger. It's Children of Morta, that's it. And that's not to say that these are the first roguelikes that ever have a narrative to speak of. Like, you can dig into the lore of Binding of Isaac for hours, honestly. But you could also dig into the lore of the Doom games for hours if you wanted to. And don't get me wrong, I love those games, but I wouldn't exactly call those award-winning narratives. So yeah, as trite as it sounds, having a roguelike where the narrative doesn't take the backseat is actually a pretty novel fucking idea. Which I could see if that comes across as gimmicky to some people, right? Like, oh, the genre that's all about dying and starting again from square one is gonna somehow have a narrative to it. Yeah, okay, I bet. But I mean, it's not like this is the first time Supergiant has tried something like this. I mean, if Supergiant's last game, Pyre, is anything to go by, then I think they're really starting to enjoy the idea of taking 2 game genres that couldn't be any further apart and mashing them together. So in Pyre, it was, what if we took a sports game and mixed it with a visual novel? And in Hades, it's, what if we took a roguelike and mixed it with a visual novel? And a little bit of dating simulator thrown in for good measure. I mean, hey, say what you want, but at least they know what they like. Fuck it, I hope their next game is a dating simulator mixed with a fucking FPS. Okay, but maybe when you hear the terms visual novel or dating simulator, it couldn't be a bigger turnoff for you. Or turn on, depending on which kind of visual novel we're talking about here. Or maybe you're thinking to yourself, what the fuck do I care about a narrative in a roguelike? That's not why I played these games. Or more importantly, how do you even fit a narrative into a game genre that is built around the idea of dying and restarting from square one? Well, when you put it like that, it's actually quite simple. You just make the entire premise of the game about escaping hell. So every time you die, you get sent back to hell. Oh, and since you're the son of Hades, hell is literally your home. And it's genius, because after every death, you don't just get factory reset back to the Isaac that first jumped down the basement, or the Gungeoneer that decided to enter the Gungeon, as it were. Because each death, each failure, and each reset are all technically canon within the universe that the game takes place in. And yeah, again, I know Hades isn't the first roguelike to do this. I just think it's one of the first to do it in a way that's actually interesting. So every time you die and come back, someone in the underworld has something new to say to you. So even when you're not technically beating the game, you're still getting a sort of progression. Not just gameplay wise, but story wise as well. Whether it's a new conversation with Achilles, who is like a better dad than your actual dad in the game, or it's an attempt at flirting with the goddess or god of your choosing. Look at that, a game with dating simulator-like elements that lets you date someone of the same sex. What a novel concept. Please excuse this completely unrelated footage where I throw Persona 5 into the fucking trash. What I'm trying to say here is that this game doesn't just inject a typical roguelike with an actual narrative for a change. It takes full advantage of the genre and makes that familiar gameplay loop integral to said narrative. The inherent monotony and repetitiveness of the roguelike structure becomes a story beat in and of itself. Hell, I would even go as far to say that's one of the major themes of the game. The majority of the characters in this game have a duty, have a routine, to the point where they seem more like some poor bastard working a 9 to 5 than actual Greek legends. And it's great because these little reprieves that each character gets from their own responsibilities are like the most endearing parts of the game. You got Thanatos here, who is the literal god of death, who gets so fed up with his responsibility of reaping souls that he turns it into a little competition between him and Zagreus. And if Zagreus wins said competition, then he leaves him a health upgrade item, which is in the shape of a heart, and then he fucks off because he's in love, but he's too much of a tsundere to admit it. Just tell him how you feel, man. Life is too short to be hiding your feelings. Actually, you're both immortal, so never mind, you got all the time in the world. Or how about Sisyphus? So the way the Greek legend normally goes is that as punishment for tricking the gods over and over again, Sisyphus is forced to roll a boulder up a hill for all eternity. And no matter how many times he tries, every time the boulder gets even close to the top, it's just gonna roll all the way back down. Not in Hades though, fuck that, it's too depressing, make me cry just thinking about it. Not only is Sisyphus like the most happy-go-lucky dude in the game, who literally gives you free shit every time you see him, but that boulder he's supposed to be pushing up the hill has a little face on it, and his name is Bold. And you're like, that's weird, why does it have a face on it? Can it talk? And then, if you deepen your bond enough with Sisyphus, he's like, yeah, Boldy actually can talk. You should chat him up, he's great for conversation. So you go, wait, what the fuck, really? Oh my god, I gotta give this a shot. Then you go to talk to him, and he doesn't say shit, because he's a boulder, and boulders can't talk. Oh, and I haven't even mentioned Cerberus yet. You know how Cerberus is like the hound dog of hell? Like he's the gatekeeper, he makes sure no one gets in and out that's not supposed to? Well, the way you get past him is instead of fighting him, you just get him a dog treat and then he fucks off. No, yeah, go ahead. Look me in the eyes and tell me this isn't Game of the Year. I dare you. It's insane how Supergiant can just take these characters that have had their stories told and retold time and time again for thousands of years and still make their depictions here as interesting and refreshing as they've ever been. Not only that, but even if you somehow don't give a rat's ass about the narrative in the game, the story beats and character actions are intrinsically tied to the gameplay mechanics as well. What's that? You don't care about reuniting Achilles and Patroclus? We should probably go talk to Patroclus anyway, because he's gonna give you an item that gives you back all your extra lives and saves your run. Oh, so you think you're too cool for Boldy and Sisyphus? Well, joke's on you, dickhead, because if you deepen your bond enough with Sisyphus, he gives you a little stuffed animal, call it Shady, and every time you use it, he fucking throws Boldy at every enemy, does 1,000 damage, and drops a bunch of healing items and gold. What, you're telling me you don't care whether or not Zagreus gets reunited with his mother after defeating Hades? Well then I guess you're missing out, because once you defeat Hades, not only do you unlock new story progress, you get a whole new mechanic that lets you put a crazy amount of difficulty modifiers on each one of your runs. One of which lets you fight a souped up version of every boss fight in the game, including new arenas, mechanics, designs, and music. Have I made my point yet? Is it starting to sink in? But hey, none of this matters if the gameplay is dog shit, right? Oh, just kidding. Spoiler alert, it's fucking amazing. You really think Supergiant would just be knocking it out of the park with every other aspect of the game and then miraculously choke when it came to the gameplay? Honestly, how dare you even insinuate that? That's insulting to my very nature. They didn't just knock the ball out of the park, they hit it so hard it orbited around the earth, and then when it finally started crashing back down, they jumped up and caught it themselves. So let's talk about it, yeah? See what I did there? Talked about the story, then talk about how it was intertwined with the gameplay as a transition to talking about the gameplay itself. Ever since I got into the roguelike genre, I always knew there was something missing from even my favorite titles. Year after year, another roguelike would take center stage and start making waves, but I never really felt like we were getting the logical progression that the genre was capable of having. A game that would capitalize and improve upon the very nature of the genre, while simultaneously remedying the shortcomings that have plagued the genre throughout the years. Now maybe this is a bold claim, but I truly believe that Hades should be the new gold standard for roguelikes. Now, based on this very scientific graph that is not at all just my opinion and arbitrary as fuck, there's about 3 pillars that make up the perfect roguelike. And you can still be a good or even a great roguelike if you only have 1 or 2 of these. But if you have one, you're gonna have to do that one really well. And if I didn't make it obvious enough already, Hades gets the gold star for all 3 of these. Good job, Hades, you're the best. If you've been paying attention, this first one's obviously a freebie, because we spent a good chunk of the video talking about it already. Hades and Children of Morta are the only roguelikes that have halfway decent narratives, and I still think Hades comes out on top, but that's just a matter of my opinion. Which begs the question, if one of the main pillars is narrative, why didn't I just introduce this whole pillar thing earlier? instead of after we talked about the narrative at length. But whatever, okay? I've been procrastinating this video long enough and I just want to get it done. I can't restructure the whole thing. Fuck off. The second, and seemingly most simple pillar, is enjoyable and satisfying fundamental gameplay. This one is measured by how fun the gameplay loop is before you get any items or build paths to augment said gameplay. So obviously if it's that simple, then every popular roguelike must be able to do this, right? Nope, I tricked you. You fell for it. Binding of Isaac's base gameplay makes me want to gouge my eyes out, and I have like 100 hours in that game. Wow, what a truly unique way to get the player immersed into your universe. You make the main character's weapon his own tears as you bore the player to tears on the first few floors. It's genius. And hey, Enter the Gungeon does something pretty similar. You make the entire game based around firearms and bullets, and you make the first floor so boring that the player wants to blow their fucking brains out. Alright. I'm being overly facetious about two games that I enjoy a great deal and have sank a lot of hours into. Wow, Jonathan, way to break new ground. Hyperbolic negativity on a YouTube video discussing a video game? Never seen that one before. Good job, champ. Yeah, I know I'm exaggerating a bit, but honest to God, I think this is a massive problem with the genre. So many of these games, specifically the two most popular ones, are perfectly fine with sacrificing solid and enjoyable gameplay in the name of unique and game-breaking builds. And to be fair, you can't really get builds as crazy and unique as the ones you see in Gungeon and Isaac without making that sacrifice. Because if you make that base combat system as bare bones as possible, it serves as like the most malleable Play-Doh possible to morph into any way you see fit. But that's the thing, if you don't get kickstarted early with some good and unique items, then you're stuck with that basic ass combat system. And that's a pretty big detriment to both your enjoyability of the game and your possibility of succeeding, especially when you hit the first boss. Alright, stop me if you've heard this one before. You boot up a run of Gungeon or Isaac, and you want a pretty vanilla experience to start out with, so you pick the most basic characters, and you get to your first item room and it's a piece of shit. Or maybe it's not even a piece of shit, but it's an item that's only good when it synergizes with other items, and since it's your first item, it's certainly a piece of shit at the current moment. So you get to the boss, and because you've played the game a lot and it's only the first floor, you're pretty good at dodging the attack patterns, but because you have so little damage and your item room didn't help to remedy that fact, it's a fucking bullet sponge that takes 10 minutes to defeat. And because it takes 10 minutes to defeat, you start getting a little sloppy in your gameplay, and because you start getting a little bit sloppy, you take some damage. And because you took some damage, you missed out on that health upgrade that you get if you perfect the boss. So not only did you get screwed over by bad RNG and have no good items to show for it, but because of that bad RNG, you made a silly mistake on the first boss and now you missed out on a health upgrade. So now you're going into the second floor, which is even harder than the first, and you're basically still at square one in terms of your power. If it wasn't clear already, this is one of the main reasons why people don't get into the genre. And the worst part is, it's not like this is a necessary aspect of the genre. It's not like complex motion inputs in a fighting game, where if you don't like those, then fighting games might just not be for you. You can easily make a good roguelike that has enjoyable combat from minute one. Games like Dead Cells and Nuclear Throne are living proof of this. Hades more so than all of them, honestly. Alright, so here we go. Before your run even begins, you got a total of 6 different weapons to choose from. 4 melee, 2 ranged, each with their own specific movesets and special abilities. One of which is a fucking gun. I've discovered the Olympians' one true weakness, lead. You may have defeated me last time, father, but this time I came fucking strapped. Say hi to Hypnos for me, you little bitch. Sorry, I got a little off topic there. Anyway, on top of that, each weapon has 4 separate aspects which fundamentally change how that weapon functions. Like adding extra Captain America shield tosses to the Aegis shield, or adding a magnetic effect to your uppercut when using the gauntlets. Yeah, let me get a Shoryuken with a side of Scorpion get over here. Okay, just pull up to the second window, cool. And if you want to get a little more granular, the 4th aspect of every weapon fundamentally changes the moveset. So you can go from something like this to something like this. You got an almost instantaneous dash with invincibility frames, and as we all know, dashes are just better than dodge rolls. They just are, I'm sorry, that's how it is. A projectile that if landed, stays lodged in the enemy it hits, allowing you to do extra damage for a short period of time. Not to mention the mirror mechanic, which lets you play around with a metric fuck ton of stat modifiers and bonus mechanics. And if I haven't illustrated this point clearly enough already, may I just add that all these mechanics are available to you before the run even begins? Oh, and don't even get me started on that pussy shit in Isaac and Gungeon. Oh, what, I have to find the item room? Fuck that. Give me the item the second the run starts so I can start whooping ass from the jump. Let's see, what else is there? Oh, every time you actually get an item, instead of just getting saddled with some piece of shit that you have to deal with for an entire floor, you get to pick from a selection of 3 so you can tailor make your own build. Oh, I almost forgot to mention, I wasn't going to say anything because this seems so obvious in video games, but games like Isaac and Gungeon haven't figured it the fuck out, so I guess I might as well mention it. Every time you get a buffer item, it actually tells you what it does outright, with specific damage numbers and everything. Instead of giving you some cryptic message like, oh, the clock strikes 12 at 3 p.m. And then you're like, what the fuck does that mean? I just got this item and I know dick all about what it does. Off to the wiki page, I guess. Listen, I'm only harsh on these games because I love them to death and I've played them a lot, so I'm deeply, deeply familiar with their shortcomings. But there's also this, like, small but pervasive criticism of Hades that it's like a sanitized version of the genre, or the only reason why it's successful or acclaimed is because it's got a good story and the genre isn't known for that, but all the other aspects are weaker compared to other games in the genre. And I just can't fathom that or comprehend that argument to save my goddamn life. The only, and I mean only, explanation I can think of for this kind of argument comes into play with our third and final pillar, and it's the reason why a lot of people excuse the problems with Gungeon and Isaac I've previously mentioned, or why other roguelikes with solid base gameplay, such as Nuclear Throne or Dead Cells, don't really stand the test of time in the way that Isaac and Gungeon do. And for all you big brain geniuses out there, you probably already guessed what I'm talking about. I'm talking about build diversity. Like I said earlier, there's a reason why games like I keep saying Isaac and Gungeon a lot. Isaac and Gungeon, Isaac and, I repeat myself a lot in this video. I say Isaac and Gungeon a lot. I say roguelike a lot. I say genre a lot. Get used to it, because it's not getting fixed. Fuck you, this is how the video is. Anyway, the reason why those games have such boring and bare-bones fundamental base gameplay is so you can build upon those fundamentals with crazy and varied item builds. This is why these two, and Isaac in particular, are the kings of the genre. Because no other game I've mentioned in this video is capable of making you go from somewhere like this to somewhere like this. And at the end of the day, this is why a lot of people put up with the shortcomings of this genre. Because ironically enough, the only thing that can make tearing Mega Satan a new asshole more satisfying is making what precedes it super fucking boring. It's a common way to make the player feel like they've really grown throughout their journey. Kicking Vile's ass is satisfying because the plot of the game was kickstarted when he kicked your ass. Waltzing through the Forsaken Fortress and one-shotting everything with a Megaton hammer is satisfying because the last time you were there, you had to Metal Gear Solid your way through or else you would get thrown in jail. But I'm getting off track. That's a whole nother video in and of itself. And it's not like the slow start is the only reason why these builds are fun. Make no mistake, you can get overpowered builds in Hades, and trust me, we're gonna get to that. But you can't do this to the final boss. You can't do this to the final boss. You can't do this, and you get the point. This is why I was saying earlier that if you only have one of the pillars, then you have to do it really, really well. Yeah, Isaac does it really, really well. What can I say? That isn't to say that Hades doesn't have its shining moments when it comes to its build diversity. And I don't mean that in like a pity type of way, like, well, Isaac's good, but Hades has his moments. Hades gets its punches in. Like, no, there's some pretty cool stuff to analyze here. Like here, I'll show you one of my favorite combos I've gotten throughout my time playing Hades and illustrate just how easy it was to get too. So before the run even starts, you're going to want to select the Twin Fist weapon.
Trying to catch his hand?
Now normally their attacks look like this, but if you pick the aspect of Gilgamesh, their attacks look like this, and this is imperative to this build. Then you're going to want to get an Athena boon, and make sure you pick the one that makes your attacks have a reflect property, and that's it, you've completed the build. So now every one of your base attacks that attacks in a wide cone area can reflect projectiles. And it'll look a little something like this. You fools! You thought you could land a hit on me? Okay, maybe you could get a few, but ha! You'll never touch me! Get back! Back, all of you! If that wasn't a good enough example, some of my favorite builds in this game aren't even builds. Like, you don't need a combination of items to get them, you really just need one thing and it's already a blast. Like, okay, so there's some boons in this game called calls. That sounds stupid, but they are named calls. They basically work like fighting game super meters. You got about 4 or 5 bars, depending on which call you get, and you can either use one for a small effect, or bide your time until you have all 5 built up, which you typically can't do, unless it's a boss battle, and then you get a souped up version, where the god of choice actually comes in, you get a little portrait, and they say a quote, it's cool. My favorite though has to be Aphrodite's, because if you use it as a level 1, it's just a little arrow that has a charm effect, so typically you're going to use it in a room that's lasting a little too long, maybe shoot one of the bigger enemies with it and then have them attack the smaller enemies to give you a little bit of an advantage. But for some reason, if you let it build up all the way, it does a massive chunk of damage to bosses. So it goes from, ooh, a little charm effect that might help out in this room, to,
Launch the missile now!
now like I said, these two builds I've highlighted already aren't really builds. It's not like there's 5 separate items you need to collect as a prerequisite to fucking unite Exodia to unlock the full potential of your destructive powers. But while I prefer the approach that Hades takes, I know a lot of people only come to this genre because they want that kind of Exodia type build. Now, okay, let me level with you. If that's the main reason why you play roguelikes, like the only thing that's worth the price of admission for you, then maybe Hades isn't the game for you. Now that isn't to say that there isn't going to be any crazy combination builds you can get in Hades, but they're just not going to be the norm. But I'll give you some examples anyway, because, you know, fuck it. So there's this one build, and it was actually the build that I got my first one with, funny enough, where you take the Ares cast, which is just like this chainsaw blade, and basically just buff the shit out of it to the point where you're throwing Hades into the goddamn meat grinder and just chopping him to bits like he's nothing. There's this one with Demeter's cast, which is this kind of like freezing laser crystal thing, and you basically just buff the shit out of that too, to the point where it becomes homing, and you have like 8,000 of them. So when you pop them all, it's like triangulating target. There's one where you just make yourself so tanky and survive with all of your extra lives, and then also get boons that make you do damage every time someone damages you. So you can literally just put the controller down, file your taxes, take a shit, take all the time you need, and then when you come back, the final boss will already be dead. Anyway, I think I've made my point by now. You can still get crazy item combinations and synergies, but they're more going to be on the side of a Gungeon than an Isaac. Whereas in Isaac, you can get so insanely broken that you're blanketing the entire screen in animations and wiping the final boss out in literally half a second. While in Gungeon, no matter how strong you get or how crazy your item builds are, there's still a cap to how much damage you can do to each boss. So yeah, that's why other roguelikes good, but Hades good in new ways that make genre have more potential for future. I don't know how the fuck to end this video. There's 800 more things I want to say, and things I would like rewrite and change about this video, but I've been working on it for so long and procrastinating it that I just kind of want to get it done and, you know, throw it out to the world. All right, here's what we're gonna do. Actually, you guys ever see that Ego Raptor video where he talks about Mega Man X, and then at the end of it he's like, all right, that's basically it. Now I'll just play the clip.
Man, I just like Mega Man X. I mean, I'm serious. This is like my favorite game. So I'm just gonna gush right now, okay? I'm just gonna gush.
Yeah, so I'm gonna do that, but with Hades, because I like copying, what is it, like 7-year-old videos about Mega Man from a fucking YouTuber who's like a Let's Player now. That's the playbook I want to copy, baby. All right, anyway, let's do it. Dude, wasn't it fucking sick how, like, when Hades first got announced at the Game Awards, the composer was like, I think the soundtrack I went for here was Mediterranean prog rock Halloween music. And you're like, what the fuck does that mean? And then you play the game and you're like, okay, yeah. No, for sure. I see what you're saying. I'm picking up what you're putting down. No, speaking of this dude, isn't it crazy how he did the entire soundtrack while also voicing the main goddamn character and, like, 3 other characters? Actually, you know, fuck it. That's just all the voice actors in this game. Like, every voice actor in this game voices like 5 characters, and they all nail it like impeccably. Like, how do you get that much talent in one company? Oh, isn't it dope how there's like these fucking bomb enemies that like they chuck nades at you, and then when they die, they do the fucking like Call of Duty martyrdom where they fucking drop a grenade on death. But if you have Athena boons that let you reflect, you just slap that shit out of the sky, like, get the fuck out of here, and then just fucking go on your way like it's nothing. Dude, doesn't it just fucking blow your tits off that every 4th aspect in this game is based off a god from a different pantheon? Like when you unlock the final aspect of the sword, it's the fucking aspect of Arthur, and you literally have Excalibur. Or the final aspect for the gun is literally the fucking aspect of Satan. It's just the Satan laser beam. Dude, isn't it the... Alright, everyone talks about this, but isn't it so cool that once you beat Theseus and Asterius in the Colosseum, and like all their fans are cheering for you, if you beat them enough, then you get your own fan, and every time you walk up to him, you give him like a little shout, you're like, hey, that's my shade right there, that's my guy. Dude, doesn't it just fucking beat your dick clean off that another form of progression in this game is like pimping out the House of Hades? Like just buying cool decorations and furniture, and then getting a bird's eye view so you can just see all the cool shit you put in there? Like, yeah, I put a fucking disco ball in the lounge area, it's fucking popping now, baby. Alright, I think that's it. I think that's all I got for now. But, hey, thanks for watching, man. It means a lot. I think this is the part where, like, I would have some music fade in, and then it would cut to like an end screen with like a cool little drawing of me and like a nice background, and then like other videos for you to watch. But this is my only video, so this is all you get, I guess. But hey, thanks for watching. And if you got mad that like I shit on a game you like, then why? Like, I'm just some random dickhead. I'm literally just some idiot with a microphone and an opinion. So fucking don't let whatever I say get on your nerves, because it's not worth it. But hey, if you liked the video, fucking thanks for watching. That's real cool of you. Hopefully I'll have more out in the future, because this was fun to make, and hopefully my work ethic and time to finish the next video will not nearly be as long. Hopefully I can finish the next one a lot quicker than I did this one. I don't know why the fuck I worded it like that. Okay, anyway, thanks for watching again, and take it easy.